Let's talk.
Giles Brown.
The new fatherhood. Okay, the old rules of fatherhood are no longer fit for purpose. It used to be simple. You had to protect, provide for, and preside over your family. But the world has changed. I can hear you all nodding at your wirelesses from here. And the gentleman who's going to tell us all about the new fatherhood is my next guest, Kevin Maguire. Kevin, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Just explain to me a little bit about why you are so eminently qualified to shake up the rules of fatherhood. And what's your background, please, Kevin?
I mean, my background is not very fatherhood related. I grew up in kind of a world of marketing and advertising. I did that for 20 or so years, but I've been a dad now my daughter will turn 12 on Friday. My son turned 7 recently. And it's really kind of like over those years that I've been a dad, I've really been noticing this shift that has occurred for this generation of dads. And it really the models of fatherhood that we inherited are kind of no longer fit for purpose. And it used to be that being a dad was, you went out to work and you brought home a paycheck, and that was the extent of what you needed to do. And now there's just been this huge shift in kind of what it means to be a dad and what it means to show up for your family. So, my work is really around chronicling that changing face of fatherhood.
When you say, because I'm a little bit older than you, Kevin, believe it, yeah, and so when I was in my 20s, it was like 1986 or something, 1996, and people were talking about, metrosexuals, it was Beckham and it was all that sort of stuff, and before we got the lad culture, and we didn't, father, of all the things that men looked at, or was being looked at, like, men wearing sarongs out and getting their hair done and using moisturizer, this wasn't even, it was then assumed that you would do the normal thing, the thing that your dad had done and his dad had done. We didn't look at new fatherhoods. I mean, like, as you said, the thing that we did was get out and bring in the paycheck. And that was it. But this is before we have a sort of, the gig economy comes along and there's no such thing as having a job for life and everything gets shaken up by the internet.
Well, I think, what's been interesting is it's not the gig economy that's really driving this. It's been the kind of like advance of women as earners in the household. In the US, you look at 1/3 of marriages, egalitarian marriages, they call them, where the men and women earn equally. 1/6 of marriages in the US, the woman brings home like the majority of the income, and actually women are still doing as much work at the home. The thing I often say is they're bringing home the bacon and they're cooking it as well. So there's this kind of shift of this idea that dads used to be you were the sole breadwinner, you went out and that was all you needed to do. Like, that has shifted, and now we're in this new model where the kind of dads that came before us, we just, like you said, whatever it was, with lad culture, with kind of like metrosexuality, with like modern masculinity, things were changing. Now fatherhood is starting to catch up with it as those kind of men, more evolved men. You look at the cover and the joke of the cover is like the evolution of man is to become a dad, and it is these more evolved men that are trying to do parenting differently.
But you know what's going to come next, don't you? People say, well, that's just in nature, isn't it? Because basically, the woman just stays out, the mummy bear looks after and then the teddy bear goes out and rips the guy carrying the baby on the front of your plate to pieces. But there people say, or certain people who believe in certain, shall we say, certain ideas of the divine will go, well, no, actually, that's against the whole, his woman's role to stay there. And it is written in the book of Brian that they will remain there. So you're up against some pretty stiff opposition there, Kevin.
Yeah, completely. And, for me, my job isn't to convince like those you look at this trad wife movement in the US of women that are kind of like staying at home and baking cereal from scratch every day for their kids. And it's like, this is the way that I am as a woman. And it's like, it's a pushback. And it's like, and there are trad husbands as well. My job isn't to convince those people that fatherhood is changing. My job is to convince the guys that are living under this kind of tectonic shift of fatherhood and are experiencing those earthquakes in real time to be able to be better equipped to navigate them.
So, when you're saying better equipped to navigate them, you shouldn't be, you should not be sort of throwing all your old lumberjack shirts out of the rubbish and then embracing a cagoule or something to carry the little one about. So, are we talking about? I mean, you see, I am supremely not qualified to write this. I don't have kids, but I'm thinking people will say it's the greatest day of my life. And are we saying that dads should get more involved? Are we saying that because traditionally it hasn't been an equal partnership, but we should say, dads should not feel threatened by this whole situation and just get involved and kind of enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, in 2024, we spent $6.3 trillion on self-help and personal improvement. Like on trying to be better versions of ourselves, like books that we read, like spa weekends, like courses that we took, all these different things to be better. And if you ask any dad what was the biggest transformation of his life, he won't point at any kind of self-help book that he's read or course that he's taken. He will point to the tiny human that he shares a house with and say, this is the thing that changed everything. And for me, so many of us understand and realize that this is a huge shift that's coming, but we aren't prepared to navigate the change. What the book tries to do is it understands like the historical context of fatherhood, the history of it, the dads we watched on TV growing up, like all these things. And then like, what is our place in that lineage of all the dads who came before us? And then what do we do so that we can like deal with everything that we have inherited that might not all be good and prevent passing it on to our kids so they won't have to deal with it in the future?
So what are we looking at? Sort of basic, some basic rules. I remember a friend of mine who, admittedly, he was Australian, and we were. This is 20 years ago, and somebody was saying, oh well, this guy was there at the birth of his child, in the delivery suite, and this Australian lady, my mate's mum, said, do you know, and Brenny, do you know where your father was when I delivered you? He was down the pub with his mates. So that's an old, wetting the baby's head. I mean, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, after you.
Oh no, the big shift that happened was really being present for the birth of our children, right? It was like the actual process of birth was something that was hidden away from men for so long. Like you waited in a delivery room or you went down to the pub and waited in the pub and had a drink with your friends. And then a baby would be presented to you. It's like you didn't witness what the mother went through to kind of get the baby here. The baby would be nice, it would be clean, would be wrapped up in this kind of cotton white blanket. And it's like, here's a perfect little baby that is, you helped bring into this world. But like to physically be there for that moment, like I think that was the start of everything. That was the start of when fatherhood began to shift, when men were present and when men can kind of like take that baby in their arms that had just been born.
How, this is going to sound like a weird question, but how much input do you need from your other half? Because obviously you're the father and there's a mother there. So, I mean, is it difficult not to, with this new fatherhood, sort of not to tread on the toes of your partner because, she's been carrying this little bundle of whatever around for 9 months and it's not going to have that deep attachment. I mean, there's no point, the worst thing you could possibly do, Kevin, is to say, no, I've read it here in the book and we're supposed to do, and then the next thing there's a flying rattle coming at you.
Well, of course. I mean, I'll say what the deal is with this book is of all the best parenting things that you read, like the ones that focus on the kids, like those will help the kids. Those will help you like raise a better kid and kind of navigate some of the ups and downs of parenting better. This book is about focusing on yourself. Like this book is really about kind of like, what are all the things preventing you from being the dad that you want your kids to remember? Because every interaction you have with your kids every day is like in a long, long time, there's this idea that in a long time, your kids will sit down around a table as an adult with a group of friends and they'll talk about the childhood that they had. Right? And they'll talk about you and you won't be there. And really like you get a chance every day to kind of like set the stage for how they will talk about the childhood that they had in the future.
It's the most important thing, being present. Because I mean, a lot of people, I didn't get a boarding school, but a lot of my mates went to boarding schools and they had a very strange relationship with especially their fathers. At the same time, you because a lot of people have to work and the jobs. So it is that, I have, and also, I'm living in Marbella. And if you want to see an abject example of how money doesn't buy happiness, the number of kids I grew up with who still see, who think that having the new iPhone or having the new whatever is a replacement of having a parent there. And my goodness, that is wrong.
And that is absolutely wrong. And the idea of kind of like giving your kid, even like we're realizing more and more that giving young kids these devices from a young age is completely the wrong thing to do. You know, I often think that I feel very lucky that my daughter was born in 2014 and not 2004, because if she was 10 years earlier, that she probably would have been walking around with a phone and she'd have been on Snapchat and social media and Instagram and everything. And, you know, the kind of the central thesis of the book is this idea that like the old version of fatherhood, we were defined by these 3 P's. We had to protect, provide, and preside, right? So protect was because we were bigger. We were physically like 10 to 15% bigger than the women in our lives. You know, and it was our job to protect from a saber-toothed tiger and stop the other tribe from kind of coming in and getting us. Provide, like I said before, in so many marriages, like men and women earn equally. And preside was like, dad used to be like, dad was the boss. So many of us grew up in a house where it's like, just you wait until your dad gets home. And I don't know about you, but most marriages I know today, dad isn't the boss. Right. And I think the shift that's happened, like those were the old three P's. I think the 2 new P's that are coming in fatherhood now, one is presence, like you said, like our ability to be there for our kids in a way that so many of our dads weren't able to before. And the next is partnership. Like we're doing this with our significant others in a way that we're moving towards a more equal model of what parenting looks like.
Also, it's about, you know, I mean, you have to be, especially if you've got girls, you have to be the example of what you want manhood to look like in an age of toxic masculinity, or even for your son. Because that whole protect thing, it's not going out and, you know, whacking somebody over the head with a plank of wood. It is saying... It
is not.
You know, but again, people are looking to social media and TV for guidance, and that is completely wrong, because all you'll see are, you know, superhero movies and, you know, Church or whatever is that guy, massive guy, just dealing Reach show or whatever. You know, you see what I'm saying here? The ideas of manhood and what it means. Not having a fight is actually diffusing a situation and walking away.
Of course, and and what we need to protect our children from is completely different now. You know, it's predators online. It's like negative body image, but, you know, body dysmorphia, girl, like cyberbullying, all these different things that exist in a way that, like, my physically being bigger than my wife makes me no better at protecting my kids from what they need to be protected from today.
So who did you speak to about when you wrote this, Kevin? Because it's not just you having the thoughts of Kevin on a Monday, is it?
No, of course not. I spoke to like leading researchers, therapists. I spoke to like some of the kind of like leading dads, just dads that I admired, and people who'd written great books about things that weren't just about fatherhood, but were a result of seeing the world through a different lens of fatherhood, you know, a different lens completely. And, you know, what I spoke to hundreds of dads. You know, the core idea of the book, like the book is called The New Fatherhood, right? And The New Fatherhood it's a little bit like that US Chief Justice who was, when there was a big case about pornography in the 70s. And they said, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. And that's what I feel about The New Fatherhood. Like, you know what it looks like when you see a dad who is pushing back against these narratives of fatherhood that he inherited and is trying to do things differently. So in writing this book, I went out and I spoke to hundreds of dads. I spoke about what fatherhood, you know, I talked to them about what fatherhood looks like now, like what's hard for them, what are they finding, like raising teenage boys and teenage girls, and like all of that kind of formed this core backbone of the book, which is like at the end of every chapter of the book, there is a small section where it's different dads that I spoke to over the course of the last 5 years, and kind of pulling their stories into it, so it's not just mine.
Are the dads, though, you've spoken to hundreds of dads, do they all want the same thing? Do they want their kids to be happy and educated and grow up safe? I mean, that may be the new fatherhood, but the way that the aim of the thing you want at the end is to have a child who is happy and healthy and, you know, and enjoying life, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, different dads will get there in different ways. You know, I think the old version of fatherhood was very much, well, if I just go to work and work hard, then I can bring home enough that my kids will be provided for. You know, I think more and more dads are looking at this idea of, you know, for me, it's these 2 things. It's vulnerability and empathy, right? These are the 2 this is like the yin and yang of the new fatherhood, is if you can be more vulnerable, like with your children, if you can open up to them and connect with them on a level that most dads previously were never able to. You know, we all know that trope of the kind of stoic, emotionless dad who kind of just sits there and dispenses advice but never actually shows emotion. On the flip side, like if you can open up and be more vulnerable with your kids, like you will learn from them all the different highs and lows that they're feeling that previously like they might have only shared with mum because they never felt like they were able to kind of come to dad with these types of things and develop a much richer connection and relationship with them. And then, you know, becoming a dad just opens you up to more levels of empathy, right? If you're able to kind of feel those feelings, you will feel higher highs and lower lows than you've ever felt in your life. And those two things, vulnerability and empathy, they kind of like come together and form this really like powerful, virtuous cycle of making you a much more emotionally available and engaged dad.
The book is called The New Fatherhood. It's by Kevin Maguire speaking to you today. Kevin, if people want to find you online, obviously you've got, is it Substack? You've been writing this on. Where's the best place for people to find you and engage in the conversation?
So the best place is newfatherhood.com. That's where they can kind of find out more about the book, the podcast. I talk to different dads in creative fields and figuring out like what they think and feel about fatherhood. I'm on Instagram at newfatherhood. And yeah, those are the best places to hit me up. I love hearing from dads. So if there are dads listening to this that are thinking about like, what's, you know, really what I want the book to become is this thing that one dad hands to another and says, oof, yeah, man, that like fatherhood is a trip and it will chew you up and spit you out. But here's something that I found that really helped me.
The book is called The New Fatherhood. Listeners, you can get it on our own virtual bookstore. Just click on the rather wonderful front cover and it'll be winging its way to you. It's by Kevin Maguire. Kevin, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.